Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host, Flavia Barris, as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media, including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur.
Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. Today we get to speak with Brian Herriot. He is the founder of Choosy Consultant and a financial coach for success professionals who are desperately looking for that financial and lifestyle freedom, but are very worried they haven't saved enough to take the plunge. Brian reached financial freedom himself at age 47 and now coaches others on how to do the same thing. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's great to have you. And I'm someone who loves to talk about finance. Not everybody does. I think a lot of people shy away from numbers and economics and all the hard questions. But I love that you don't shy away from it. That is your focus. You are all about the financial aspects of adulthood, right? Adulting. So give me a little bit of background as to how you ended up making this your passion.
And yes, definitely happy to do that. Yeah, so I am a financial coach for successful professionals who have entrepreneurship on the mind. So it sounds like hopefully there's some folks listening that kind of fit that bill. But it's really come about because of my own personal story and my own personal experience. I was that person back about 10 years ago when I was 37 years old and I was doing what you're supposed to do, working hard, trying to move along, move ahead. I had at least about 3 hour commute both ways at the
Ouch.
time. Yeah, and also a 1 year old son, and somehow I got the night shift on that whole situation. And so I was operating in a bit of a daze. I was working for a difficult boss at the time. And even though all of this was happening, I just guess I just kept doing it. Like nothing really happened until this one particular day. It was 11 years ago. And I think at the time it must have been like a Google News feed or something, but I had seen in my newsfeed that Marissa Mayer, for those that haven't heard of her, she was the newly named CEO of Yahoo at 37 years old. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I really haven't made it. I thought I was doing well. And I looked her up further and found out that she had grown up in a small town in Wisconsin that was just 100 miles from my hometown. And the similarities kept piling up. And it just it just shocks me, I think, at the time where I thought, what is my future? I guess I maybe thought that someday I would be the CEO of Yahoo or something like that. And then to realize that I still had a ways to go, it made me realize that maybe I was pursuing the wrong goal. Now, I wish I could say that at that time I just quickly changed, but I don't. I sometimes think that it takes people a little while to make that jump. But what eventually happened after about 2 or 3 years' time is that I did pull out of that corporate job, pull back, and actually opened up an independent consulting practice, just myself. And over the next 7 years, really not recovered my confidence, got much further clarity on what my goals were and what was important to me. And I'm also an analytical person, and kind of amongst all of that, finding myself was able to work the numbers to make sure that I was going to be okay. And fast forward the 7 years, and finally at 47 was able to actually achieve financial freedom to me, which is not necessarily financial independence. I do still need to work, but I need to work part-time and then enjoy what life has in store for me and at any other parts of any other time. And this all happened. It was last summer actually, and I was proud of that, of course, but I was actually most proud of the fact that I actually did do something about it. So what this kind of culminated in was in June, my wife and my 12-year-old son and we took an entire month. I went to Portugal and just reassessed things. I actually took the next couple of months off and recharged at our cabin in northern Wisconsin, and just got a fresh outlook, and actually came back rejuvenated to do some additional consulting and coaching. And so that's what I do on an on and off basis, because with the financial numbers behind things, knowing that I'm going to be all right.
So go into a little bit about what it is you do day to day when you work with clients. What's the transformation for the clients and what kinds of clients are you helping?
Yeah. So the person that I'm going to help is the traditionally successful person who has come out of college, had a parent that gave them the right advice and said, start saving in your 401k, and has done that since day one, just like myself, and gotten to a point where usually then you hit about age, I'd say 40. For me, it was 37, but it's usually by 40, something happens and you look at your accounts and you say, I'm doing okay. But then you hear Susie Orman say you need to have $5 million to retire early. And you think, oh my gosh, I have another 15 or 20 years ahead of me. I'm not sure if I want to do this. And so, what I'm able to do is work with that individual and promote this concept of lifestyle freedom. So, the first thing that I needed to come to terms with that I will do with my clients is take the focus off of that mountain of savings that everyone thinks that they need to have in order to retire, and look at it more so as like a river of cash flow, right? You need to figure out what you need to survive on annually, and then figure out how to meet that number. And what you can typically do is use some portion of what you've already saved, because you have gone through that process and have done what you're supposed to do, and put that together and live partially off that. And then you just have a small amount of money left to fill each year. And that's where you say, all right, how can I essentially figure out a scenario where I can work whenever in order to fill the rest of that cash flow gap. And that's then what I work. So I will work with my clients on figuring out not what their big mountain of cash number is, but what's their annual cash flow need, and how are they going to fill it. And it usually will involve taking a jump from traditional corporate America, because for as good as it is, it's just not lined up to help you work part time or partial years. Usually, you need to step off into your own entrepreneurial endeavor to then be able to design your work. And so, what's a slightly different in my perspective is that I'm not necessarily teaching an entrepreneur how to start the next billion-dollar company, but it's really to say, hey, I need to make 100, $150,000 a year to supplement my investment income. How can I do that? And then once I do it, how can I continue to structure my business so that I'm not trying to make more than 150,000. I'm actually trying to figure out how to work less and continue to make 150,000, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I think a lot of people listening are on that quest to find that that job that is not going to take up your entire life. So something that is part-time or has some aspect that's passive that will generate the money to fill that gap so that you can pay all your bills and be a responsible adult and take care of the people that depend on you and keep going, and not necessarily for retirement, but also just to enjoy life earlier than retirement. So what are some of the ways that you've helped people do that? Because I starting a side business or a side hustle, that's something that so many people aspire to right now. What are some of the ways that you help people come up with those ideas?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that we do is we talk about what it is we value in terms of a lifestyle business. So usually it amounts to some sort of, I want to make sure that my job is project focused, so that there's a definite start and stop, so that you can start something, end it, and take a break if you need. That's usually one thing. Another would be, how can I be location independent? So usually that's finding something that you do that you can do remotely. The third, which is what has always been important to me, that I'm moving this way with the coaching, is geographically independent. So I want to be able to work from Europe for 3 months of the year. So once we figure out what the individual's goals are, and they're always a little bit different, then we can take a look at what are some unique ways to get there. So, for example, I worked with one individual who had a full time position. They had previously been in consulting. So the consulting skill set is something that they had. And we were able to figure out how to navigate their exit from their full time position and then actually contract back or consult back to their existing company. And then a great first step as an independent consultant. And then eventually you can grow your business and your clientele so that you don't need to be completely reliant on that. Another scenario would be now this person owned their company. This is a CPA who had worked hard, built, I think it was a 6-person practice and was burning the candle at both ends. So what they did is actually brought their practice back down to just himself and an assistant over a year, and then figured out how to transition to what seasonal work, which is another great model to consider. So that person was able to work November through June during the busy times for in accounting and tax preparation and whatnot, and then enjoy the off season without working and then pick it back up again. So the concept of seasonal work is another one, but those are two different models. Hopefully that's helpful.
That's really helpful. And on the finance piece, right? Because again, not everyone loves math. Surprise, not everyone
Yeah.
is it's crunching the numbers. Do you find that a lot of your clients are surprised by the numbers once you help drill down on what the economics of all this look like?
Yes. And the reason this is, I think, unfortunate because when people, usually what I'll find in people that I work with, this definitely was, again, my personal case as well, is people start to think, okay, I want to retire. I want to see if I can retire early. And then they run out to online and try out a retirement calculator or try out 10 different retirement calculators. And every single time you run it and you're like, I guess I'm going to have to be working until I'm 70 years old because the way that those calculators are set up is that they're supporting the concept that you need to have a huge retirement portfolio and able to retire. And so I have actually, as part of my business, created I don't even call it a retirement calculator, but it is a lifestyle freedom calculator that allows for, yes, those traditional savings and savings growth and the numbers associated with that. But also, let's say I want to transition to a part time job when I'm 50, but I am planning to make some money after that. It's a different look at a retirement calculator because you're able to drop a date in there that's earlier, still do the savings and investing and see how that plays, but then also add supplemental income after. And you can see how those numbers play out. And when you start to work with that, it's actually amazing how quickly you can achieve lifestyle freedom. Because I've worked, one particular person that I'm thinking of specifically said she already lived very inexpensively and she absolutely loved working at it was a gardening store. That was her passion. She would want to work there forever on a part-time basis. And when she did it, she could actually make enough money to cover her very low expenses. So even though she had retirement savings, they're not even necessary because, she wants to work at that gardening store for until she's 80 years old and she has hardly any living expenses. There's different pieces of this financial puzzle that I like to solve, and there's different levers that you can pull. It's actually a really fun for me because I like the mathematics piece of it, exercise that unfortunately some people get intimidated by it. But yes, the numbers can definitely work out a lot better than you oftentimes think, certainly.
So I know you've been working on a book project. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is my passion right now. As part of my business, I can only work with so many people, but the experience that I have in that is so rewarding for me because as we go through these plans, when you realize what's actually possible, eyes light up. So I've been looking for a way to expand that. And so I thought, why don't I just put down in a book everything that I do with my client? Now I have to make it work in such a way that it can be done without the day-to-day support that I provide. And so I'm working on this process and it's going to take me a couple of years because I want to do it really well. I want this to be a must read. To and enable that, what I'm trying to do is to get this information out to as many people as possible so that they can work through it and help inform me on the true DIY portion of putting these financial plans together. And so what I've done is I've created an audio course, a private audio course that replicates everything that will become the book. It's like a draft one of this book that will come out in 2 years. And I'm putting it out there so that individuals can, so that you can do this and see how it works, give me feedback, and hopefully find earlier lifestyle freedom along the way.
Amazing. How do people access or get on that wait list for the book and access this course?
Yeah. So the best way to do that is to go to choosyconsultant.com. And if you go to slash book, that is my book page, choosyconsultant.com/book. And on there, I have a lot more information about who who the ideal reader of this book will be. But it's what we've been talking about so far. It's people mid-career that want to make that jump into a scenario where they can work whenever. And based on that, if you're interested, you can sign up for my course and take that. And then if you give me feedback on it, I'll give you a free book in 2 years when it comes out. So there's got to be patient, but it'll be great when it gets here.
And then, in addition to your book, I believe you have a quiz that we'll make available through our guest treasury for freebies here at Lifestyle Solopreneur. Tell us a little bit about that quiz, and then we'll let people know how to access it.
Yeah, I love the quiz because in the many plans that I've worked out with people, um, it's interesting in that e- every everyone has a unique situation, but everything comes back to these four primary drivers to figure out if you can accelerate your lifestyle freedom. And it's obvious when you hear it, but it all comes back to one, what are your lifestyle expenses, right? What do you live on? So I have three questions about that. The second is savings and investing. So, of course, if you have more of that, you're in a much better position. And so there's three questions about that. There's three questions about how your current job or work, or if you're already an entrepreneur, is positioned to enable you to work after you as part of a scenario where you're in lifestyle freedom. Three questions about that. And then the final three questions are about really the human element, the human psyche. Are you emotionally ready for this change? Because a lot of people have just been programmed to do this full time work life, and they haven't really thought about what this next stage is going to be. So in those 12 questions, it's supposed to take 5 minutes, but it tends to take people 2 minutes. Together, we can get a really good sense for how well you're positioned to accelerate that date. If based on your answers, what often is the case is if somebody thinks that they need to work full time for another 10, 15 years, it's usually like a 5 to 7 years situation. Once we just individuals don't or people don't often have a clear roadmap to get to where they're going. At least I certainly didn't for a long time. You just work and save. And once we do this assessment, we can say, all right, we can bring you back and we can make you free that much sooner. So that quiz is, yes, it's available also on my site at choosyconsultant.com/quiz. And it's very quick and you'll see how you're positioned to see if you can get there sooner.
And we will add that quiz link if anybody wants to go to our just general treasury, our vault for all of the guest freebies here on the show. We are putting those all at podcastguestgift.com. That's podcastguestgift.com, where you can access this great quiz as well as other great freebies from all of our guests. So I thank you for providing that to us and the listenership because I think it's going to be a really useful tool. We just got through a big pandemic not too many years ago. And I'm curious how that pandemic has changed the outlook that people have on life and retirement and finance and how it's changed and informed what you do in your work.
Without a doubt, people now realize that there's freedom that comes with remote work. So yes, some people like working in an office, but even if that's the case, it's not 5 days a week. And so I think people got a taste of what lifestyle freedom could be like. And it's at least that was the case for me personally. So one of my one of my personal goals from a young age is I wanted a cabin on a lake, and same goal that my wife had. And when we were 30, I think before we even bought our first house, we bought a tiny little, not very nice cabin on a lake. And it was our goal to figure out, live there in the summers. We never really figured that out. We would go there for extended summer trips and hide it from our employers at the time. But it wasn't until the pandemic when we essentially got permission to work from anywhere. And we've made that a reality. So for the last 4 summers, we've spent June 1st to August 31st at our lakeside cabin. And it's been incredible. I would never go back. Right. And individuals that I work with all fall into that same camp. Once you've tasted a better way of living and working, it's really hard to go back. And that's definitely the situation that we're in, that I've noticed for sure.
I have loved talking to you. It's very inspirational, motivating to just spend some time to think about these questions. What does not just retirement, but maybe just a slowing down look like? And there's a lot of people trapped in a very busy job that they might be working 80, 90 hours a week and not feeling fulfilled and not feeling like that's the place and path for them. And just to know that there's these other lifestyles out there, pre-retirement and retirement, of course. I loved your story about your client who plans to work well into her 80s for this cute little garden store. I'm picturing
Yeah.
the store. I'm sure I can't be nailing it down perfectly, but what I'm picturing is adorable. And it makes me so happy to hear that a lot of people are living the dream and living their best life truly in their work, in finding something they're passionate about that pays the bills and helps support their lifestyle. So thank you for being on the show today. This has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it so much. And again, thank you for letting us know about your upcoming book, about the course that people can also opt into at choosyconsultant.com/course. And we're going to have that quiz linked in podcastguestgift.com for anyone that wants to take your free quiz.
Thank you, Flavia.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and if you leave a review on iTunes, I promise I will read every single review. If you know someone who makes a full-time living from part-time work, and maybe this is you, please visit lifestylesolopreneur.com to nominate a guest or to nominate yourself. Because remember this, money doesn't buy happiness. But money in the hands of a happy person, there is no greater tool.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Get Shift Done program. It's a lifestyle-changing online class to help you define your business and lifestyle ambitions and to set goals in a way you've never experienced before. This class will 10x your daily productivity with methods that will blow your mind. And if you use a coupon code podcast, the class tuition is 99% off. Visit GetShiftDone.com to enroll today.